Hi, Patrick here from the Code Lovers Academy. We are back. In this video, we're going to look at an example. This example will be a blog post or an article. We're going to write a blog post or an article about web development. And mainly, we want to utilize the knowledge that we've learned from our previous video when we looked at formatting text using different elements. Like, how do you look at text look a different way? How do we emphasize some of our text on our web page? So as I promised in the previous video, that we are going to come back and look at an example that will help us probably understand even better some of the things that we learned in the previous video. So without wasting time, let's dive in. So we will start our syntax with that shift 1, which will give you the exclamation mark, then tab, and you'll get the syntax. On our title, we want to give a title of, we're going to give a title of text formatting example. Okay. So we will open our browser. We launch our browser, and we will be working. We'll be having the browser on the side and our code editor on the side as well. Okay, here we go. So yeah, we said we're going to work on a blog post, and the blog post will be about the art of web development. So I just came up with something that would look a little bit familiar to all of us since we're learning web development. So yeah, in our body, we want to start with the header section for our web page. So there's one thing that I have not yet told you guys, but sometimes you want to create comment. Like if you're working on a header section, you want to have a comment on top that will indicate that you're working on this page. So it will be just a comment. You want something. Comments are normally not displayed on the browser. So it's just a comment that helps you know what you're working on. So if you're working on a comment, you can use Shift. You can use Shift Alt A, and it will give you a comment. Again, you press your Shift key and then the Alt key, and then press letter A on your keyboard. So it will give you a section that you can write your comment. So in this case, I'm going to call this header section. So when you save that, you realize on your browser, it's not showing anything, okay? Because that's commented out, okay? Yeah, so anything that you don't want to appear on your web browser when you reload your page, you just comment it out. Again, it's Shift Alt and letter A. Cool. So we continue. So for this section, I want to create a div. We said we could use a div to group different elements that we want to stick together. It could be a section in this case. So we use a div. And in this div, we want to create an H1. We said an H1 is always our first heading on our web page. And good practice, you can only use an H1 once in every page. So I don't expect you to use so many H1s in your web page. So an H1 should always be one main heading on your web page. So we start with the H1, and the H1 in the H1 we will have the art of web development. So we call this the art of web development. Okay, that's our heading. When we reload, as you see on the page, we'll have our heading as the art of web development. We'll also have our paragraph. And in our paragraph, we want to have the author. We want to have the name of the author, the date when this blog post is published. So we'll have two sections about the name of the author and the date is published. So we learned about the strong element. We said that we can use the strong element to bold a text on our web page. So in this moment, we want to bold some text on our web page. So now we have the author. We want to have the author, and then we have the name of the author. So in this case, we want to use the strong element. And in the strong element, we'll call this author. Okay. And then we also want to display the name of the author. So in this case, we also want to use an element that can help us display the name of the author in a way that it will be formatted in the web page in a way that it will look different. It will look appealing. So in this case, we want to use the cite element that will indent the name of the author a little bit to look appealing. So in this case, we'll use the cite element, and inside the cite element, we'll put the name of our author, and in this case, we'll call it probably John Doe. Okay. Or we could use any other name, but probably I think that's more appealing. So when we enter that, you'll see the author is bold, and John Doe is also indented in that form as the name of the author. We said we also need to put the date this blog post is published, so we can have another strong. We can have another strong element. You can just type strong and then tab. It will give you that, and we'll call this published on. And then the date. We said we can use the time element to help us display our date, to tell the browser that actually this is a date. So we can utilize the time element for that. And we will call this, it is published January, this is the date we're making this video, January 19th, 2025. Alt Z. And then inside the time, we will give it an attribute of date time. And in that attribute, we will put 2025 01/19. So that's able to tell our browser we are working with date and time. So basically that's it. If we needed to put this in different lines, probably, but I think it looks good in the same line. We can move forward to another section, but we said we could use the horizontal rule to separate our sections. So in this case, we want to add the HR to help us separate our sections so that it's drawing that line to show that we're now going to work on a different section. So in this case, we want to go to the introduction section. We are done with the header. So under the introduction, we'll put our comment again, which is Shift Alt letter A, and we call this introduction section. So in the introduction section, we'll also have our div, since we want to group this. And in our div, we now have another title. So before, maybe I could put another title that we're going to work on. Real quick. Uh, do not go back and look at something or go to Google something. What heading do you think we'll have in the next section? Like what heading? Will we have an H1? We'll have it like among the hierarchy of these headings, like what would be the next heading that we'll have here? I'll give you just like 2 seconds to answer that. Oh yeah, I guess you got it. So the next heading we'll have is an H2, since that's the next heading to the main heading, which is the H1. So this is like a subheading in our page. So our H2 will be now introduction to web development. So that is our next section. You realize this H2 is smaller than the main heading on our page, which is very good. And then we'll have a paragraph. And in our paragraph, we shall write some notes that make a little bit of sense. So we'll maybe say like web development is both a technical skill and an art form. So we'd say web development is both technical skill and an art form. Okay. In this text that we've written, we would want to emphasize some text. So we said to emphasize our text, we could use sort of italic. If we want to italicize this technical skill to make it italic, what would we do? We said we would use the EM element to help us do that. So we just want this technical one, italize it. So we would say EM. I don't know whether it's right, italize, I don't know, italize, but italicize it. Anyway, we want to make it italic. So we would pick technical skill, cut that is Control X, and put it in the middle of the EM element, EM tags. And now, as you can see, web development is both a technical skill and an art form. So this technical skill, as you can see, it's italic, and that has emphasized our text, and that looks good. It looks actually good. And we can add something here and say, and maybe we also want to make art form, like maybe we want to make it bold, like art form. These are some of the keywords we have on our page. So we would also use, we said we use the strong, we use the strong, we use the strong, we use the strong tags, and we cut this and put in the middle of the strong. Now when we do that, art form is now bold. That looks really awesome. And then we go on with our sentence. We could write a little more. We'll say whether a seasoned developer or just starting out, understanding how to structure and format content is essential. So we would just say whether seasoned or just starting out, understanding how to structure and format content is essential. essential, like that. Do that, now we have our sentence. So we'd also add something and say, in this article, we will explore various ways to format text. So say in this article, we will explore various ways to format text. Okay, and make your web page more engaging. You can say, and make your web page engaging. Cool. Our sentence is complete. We want to also like format some of the text on this sentence. So we would look at, like, if we want to format, maybe format text, we want it to pop. We want that word to pop from this sentence. So we could use the span because we want to add a color, sort of a color to that format text word. We want to add a color to its text. I know we're not using, we've not yet reached to a point where we're learning CSS, but since we are now using the span element, we want to use the span tag. So the span tag helps us, remember, as we learned, we say that the span tag helps us to like work with inline text. Since this is inline text and maybe we want to style it a bit, we could use the span tag. So we will just use it. I know you don't, some of you don't understand the syntax for CSS, but it's one of the things that we're going to look at once we're done with the HTML series. But in this case, just look at it and get familiar with it for the inline. So style, we would say color, maybe we give a color of blue in this case. So when we do that, you realize our format text now is in color blue. So now our introduction looks really good. It really looks good. So as we continue, we want to give another horizontal rule here to separate that section. So we also get another line under there. Now we want to move on to another section, which is now the main section of our blog post. So Shift Alt A for the comment, and we could call this main section of this page. Okay, in the main section, we want to have a heading, okay? And the our heading will be formatting basics, but we'll also still use our div to group elements on this heading or on this main section. So inside our div, we'll have a heading, which is our H2. We'll use another H2. Remember, it's only the H1 that we have to stick to having one H1 on every page. But an H2, if the first section is having the same hierarchy with the next section you're working on, you can still use an H2. You can repeatedly use it. Okay. Maybe now if you're going to the subheadings now within those sections, you can go to another hierarchy, which is now H3. So in this case, we are sticking to H2 because it still has the same level with the first section that we're working on. So our H2, we will call this formatting basics. Okay, that's our heading for our next section. And then we will have a paragraph. And in this paragraph, we'll have a simple sentence here, which will say, let's begin with some simple formatting tools. For example, you can use, okay, so let's begin with some simple formatting tools. Okay. For example, you can use, so this can be, for example, You can use, remember, one of the formatting tools that we looked at is the strong. So you can use strong, and in strong, the strong we said will depict bold. Okay, so when we save that, you can use bold. So you can use bold, but we can also use the italic, which is the EM. Okay, and call this EM, and you can call it italic. So our sentence says, let's begin with some simple formatting tools. For example, you can use bold and italic. That's what we looked at. You can use that text to emphasize your point. So you can use that to emphasize your point. Okay. See, now we are getting our blog post. Cool. Emphasize your point. You can also add line breaks using, so you can also add line breaks using, and now we want to use our code. Okay. And inside our code, we want to display something that looks like a code. So this normally how we can, this we want to, remember code is enclosed inside those angle brackets. So the first angle bracket, the left angle bracket, it always used as the less than sign. And the other one on the right is the greater than sign. So when we use this and sign, and then we put LT, which means less than, and we put this, that will give us the less than sign. And then we need now to put BR, okay, to give us the line break. And then on the other hand, we have this, the greater than sign, that, okay, and then it's inside the code. Oh no, not so. So these are inside the code. Let's see how that will look. So when you enter, you realize, let's begin with the simple formatting tools. For example, that bold and italic to emphasize your point. You can also add line breaks using the BR. So the code we have written here from this code element, we have put this sign gives us the first angle bracket, and then greater than gives us the next angle bracket, and then BR is in the middle here. So this code is able to generate for us, this code here that I've highlighted has generated for us this BR. Okay, cool. So the tags like this. Okay, so that's done. We also have another paragraph. In this paragraph, we are going now to utilize the breaks, okay, the line breaks. So in this paragraph, we will have web development is fun, okay, and then we said we'll need a line break because we want it to appear on a different line, and then we will also have, it's also challenging, another line break to put it on a different line, and then but it's worth it. which is actually true, but it's worth it. Okay, so when we save this, you realize now we have web development is fun, and we have a line break. It's also challenging, another line break, but it's worth it. Okay, so yeah, then we can have another paragraph. Okay, and in this paragraph, we want to have something else. So we would say adding a horizontal rule with this code. We want to show the code for the horizontal rule. Adding horizontal rule with this, with call this, we give the code. Now we want to display the code for the horizontal rule, how the horizontal rule is written, the type for the horizontal rule, which we said we start with this for the less than sign, which is the first angle bracket, and then we use HR, and then now we put the greater than 1. When we do that, you see it has given us the H1. So adding a horizontal rule with the HR. And this can help separate sections for better readability. So we could add here and say, this can help. This can help. This can help to separate sections for better readability. Cool. So we have that. And we also want to separate this with horizontal rule. So that section is done. Okay. Now we want to look at the next section. We're going to work on the next section, which will be the quote section. Now we want to have some quotes in our web page. So, okay. So we have Shift Alt A for our comment, and we'll call this a quotes section. So in our quote section, we still have a div because we want this section to be grouped together. And we'll still use our H2. This is still the same level with the other headings. And we'll call this quotes and citations. Quotes and citations. Okay. And then we have a paragraph in this section. When sharing wisdom or attributing content to an author, when sharing wisdom or attributing content to an author, you can use quotes. Okay. Then you can use quotes. So for example, when we do that, now we have that on our page. So we said we could use when we have long quotes, we could use the block quote element. So in this case, block quote will help us do this. So inside the block quote, we could have our quote which says the best way to predict the future is to create it. Exactly true. the best way to predict the future is to create it. Okay, that's our quote. Best way to predict the future is to create it. That's our block quote. Now we will have another paragraph. Okay. So under this, have a paragraph, and inside this paragraph, we will also have another sentence which says you can also add inline quotes like this. You can also add inline quotes like this. So under this, we will have a quote. Remember, this one we used to add inline quotes. So in the inline quote, we'll have web development is a journey, not a destination. So we would say web development is a journey, not destination. You have to keep learning. Okay, so see now our quote is inline quote. Web development is a journey, not a destination. Okay, so this section is done. Now we want to move to another section. And another section we're going to have is the technical section. Technical section. So in the technical section, we can have our div to group our text, and we'll still have an H2. This is the same level with the other headings. And in this H2, we'll have adding technical content. Okay. Here on our page, we have adding technical content. And we forgot to have the HR here to separate these sections. So now we separated that section. We're now moving to another section. So after H2, we'll have a paragraph in this section. And in the paragraph, we'll say, when discussing programming, it's important when discussing programming, it's important to format code snippets. Okay, format code snippets correctly. Code snippets correctly. To create an HTML tag element to create a basic HTML structure you can use. So to create a basic HTML structure you can use. Okay, so that's our content. So we want to move forward and now write our code. Okay, so the next section we're going to look at, we will have element called pre that helps us put our code together. So in this case, we'll start writing our code by Remember, we use this for our first tag, and then for our first angle bracket, and then we are writing an HTML code. So we'll have doc type, and then it will be HTML, okay? And it will have this greater than sign. When we look on our page, it will give us that doc type HTML, okay? And the next one will be HTML itself. So we'll also have this LT, and then we'll have HTML, we'll have that, then HTML, and now this greater than that, and we'll have a HTML tag there. And then next we will have the head. So for the head, we'll also have LT, and we put head, and that greater than that. Then we have our head next. Okay. Then after, we will have inside the head, we'll have a title. So we'll have this. And then we'll have title. And we'll have the closing one. Okay. And then we'll call this my web page. Okay. For the opening one. And then title. And then the closing one. So you can see on our page, we have title, my web page. And then we have to close the head. So we can copy this for head, copy it, bring it here, and then just add this to give us the closing tag for the head. That's what we've seen there. We could also copy and just change the body. We could also still have this. We could also have this. First here, just change here to body. Since now we're going to the body section. And then in the body, we want to have an H1 with hello world. So we could also paste this here and just have an H1 here. And after that, we will call this hello world. Okay. And then we would also paste this here, but now have an H1. So you realize now we have in our body, we have hello world as an H1. And then we could paste this here and then change this as a closing tag for the body. Okay. So now our body is there. And then we can have the HTML closing tag as our last one. So we can paste this here and have an HTML closing tag. Okay, so this section is done. So what this section is saying is, when discussing programming, it's important to format code snippets correctly to create a basic HTML structure you can use. So we have created an HTML structure. This is the syntax of HTML, a code snippet. And we have utilized some of the elements we've learned to create this on our web page. So that's that. We could add probably a paragraph and say, always use, we want to add the abbreviation element, and then we say the abbreviation element. So we always use HTML, but this can have a title attribute. We want to add it, give it a title attribute. And the title attribute, we want to give the HTML in full markup language. And language, and we have another abbreviation, and we say CSS, which is, we could also give it a title attribute, and CSS in full is cascading style sheet. Okay, and then we could say to ensure our web pages are both functional and actually appealing. So we could add and say to ensure that our web pages are visually, are functional and visually appealing. So when you go down, you realize we always use, when you put your cursor on HTML, it brings hypertext markup language. And CSS, when you put the cursor there, down you can see it's showing cascading style sheet to ensure that our web pages are functional and visually appealing. So our section is complete. So we can put an HR to separate our section. And yeah, we have that line to separate our section. Now, our last section will be conclusion. So we'll have our conclusion. We'll have our conclusion. Okay. And in the conclusion, we want to have a div still to group our elements on this section. And we'll still have an H2. And an H2 will be conclusion, like so. And we'll have a paragraph in this section. And the paragraph will be text. Text format plays a crucial role. Text formatting plays a crucial role in web development. So we could say text formatting is a crucial role web development. In web development, I would say from highlighting important content to making technical documentation clean. From highlighting important content to making technical documentation clear and concise. Okay. By mastering this element, you can create web pages that are not only functional, we'll say by mastering this element, you can create web pages that are not only, you can create web pages that are not only functional, but also visually compelling, but also visually compelling. Wow. Okay, so that's our concluding section. And in that section, that's just a paragraph. So we will also add another paragraph under that. And in this paragraph, we can have something like happy coding. Just something to conclude with. Happy coding. Okay. And we want to style it a little bit. Just give it a, we want to style it a little bit by giving it a span. And we'll have this happy coding inside the span. And we'll give it a little bit of style and say maybe let's give it a color of let's say green. Okay, so as you can see under we have happy coding in green, but we also want to center line this. So we could say just text align, just say center maybe. And now our text is centered. So yeah, this is our blog post, and the blog post is about the art of web development. So we have pretty utilized all the elements that we've learned in the previous video to just be able to format our page and make it look appealing, make it look visually good. And when we learn CSS, we can even make this more appealing, make it look more good. And yeah, I'm really happy that you guys stayed to the end. For those who have stayed to the end of the video, I know you've learned a lot. We have also utilized pretty everything that we've learned in the previous videos, bit different type of elements that we use on our web page. The headings we've used several headings here. We've used the paragraphs. We've formatted our text. We've used pretty most of the things that are commonly used in web development as we're formatting using HTML. So yeah, this is pretty good. And I would want you to try this on your own. Maybe pick a thing, pick an article, pick a simple project that you can practice using this, or you can also you do the same. Follow through the video, see what I've done. Don't just copy paste or do anything, but look at the video and then go and start it on your own. You know, do what you remember, keep practicing, and that's the way we will keep learning as we proceed. But thank you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell so that whenever we upload a video like this, you're the first one to get it. And then don't forget to like this video and also recommend it to your friends, recommend it to your family, recommend it to someone who is just starting out learning web development. This could be really a good way to start. And yeah, thank you once again. This is still Patrick from Code Lovers Academy. I'm here to always bring you content about web development, and my happiness is to see that you guys actually continue learning. So go to the comment section, tell me what you've learned, probably something that maybe is hard to you, something that is confusing to you, what maybe you want me to emphasize more in the next videos. But in the next videos, we'll also be looking at lists. We want to go and look at lists and see how do you work with lists. Like, yeah, so thank you guys. See you in the next video. Thank you.